All right, he's about to complete his month-long residency in Ann Arbor, Michigan for Fox Sports, the lead college football analyst, and he's got the Joel Klatt Show podcast as well. Back here on the Rich Eisen Show on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line is Joel Klatt. How are you, Joel?
I'm great. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Last time I saw you was in Vegas, where we saw people have residencies and casinos across the street and all around us for the NFL draft. Do you feel like, are you the Blue Man Group of Ann Arbor, Michigan right now? Is that what you are?
I think,
Is what's going on?
I'm most likely. I just am not compensated as well as the Blue Man Group in Vegas. So I think their residency has been more lucrative than mine.
I guess I should have said, I just blew the line. The Mason Blue Man Group. That's what you are.
There you go.
Hey, now. Yeah.
Now you're working.
Fourth straight appearance for Michigan on the big noon Fox game, and this is the biggest one of the four, without a doubt. Clearly, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. How do you see the Michigan-Penn State matchup going down this week, Joel?
I think it is a fabulous matchup. I think they're very evenly matched. I love the changes that Penn State has made since last year. You know, they struggled last year after starting. This is the second straight year we've seen them inside the top 10, 5-0. To begin the year. And last year they just didn't have the staying power because they didn't have the depth at quarterback. They suffered some injuries on the defensive line. And honestly, their offense never materialized because of their inability to run the ball. And they've corrected all of those issues. And this is a much better team than I saw in the middle of the year a year ago. They can run the ball really well, Rich, with two young freshman running backs. Nick Singleton was the number one running back in the country in last year's recruiting cycle. He signs with Penn State, and he's really transformed them and their offense. And what he's done is he's allowed a veteran quarterback in Sean Clifford to really be more of a game manager rather than having to be the catalyst as a playmaker in their offense. And he manages the game pre-snap now as good as anybody out there and gets them into the right play, and I think that's where he's best, and he's flourishing. On the other side, what I can't wait to see is the next gear from Michigan. And this is the problem doing three straight Michigan games. They haven't had to go to even really fourth gear, Rich. Even tied at 10 at half last week, it was such an emotional experience because of what was happening with their coach, Mike Hart, who is their running back coach. If you don't know, Mike Hart had a seizure last week on the sidelines in Indiana, and they had a hard time getting over that emotionally in the first half, and rightly so, by the way. But we haven't had to see them as a team really go into that even fourth gear or certainly even fifth gear. And what I can't wait to see is, does this team have that gear? Where are the wrinkles? Where are the little change-ups? And, we think that J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback, can take them to the next level offensively because of his potential. We just haven't seen it yet. And I think that we'll have to see it this week if they want to win the game.
Why haven't we seen it yet, Joel? Why?
Well, I don't think that they've needed to. And, I'm sure they're so – Rich – we joke about I'm taking up residency. These coaches are like, get out of here, class. Because they keep getting asked by the media, the local media, about things that I'm saying.
Yeah.
Of course, because I questioned the fact that they have two play callers, and then last week I said, hey, they've got some real tendencies on offense. But the part of that is that they haven't had to break them. They haven't needed to go there, and so why break them? Why put things on film that you can save for when you absolutely need them? I think that's a big reason. And then I think also the natural maturation of a young quarterback. J.J. McCarthy is really talented, and he is beginning to learn how to be a starting quarterback and not just a spot guy that goes in. Everyone tells me well, he's experienced. He played last year. Yeah, but it's so different when you're the starter. The pressure, the yoke that you carry of the team is heavy. It's burdensome, and he is learning how to deal with that. More specifically, he's learning how to complete the ball down the field. He got a little better last week, but that's certainly going to have to increase if they want to take the next step, be explosive, be a creative and innovative offense, and still have the ability to beat you up in the inside running the football, which they've been able to do very well.
Well, you know the drill, Joel Klatt, certainly from the perspective that I have and the rest of the Michigan fan base is every time I watch them, I just look for team speed. I look for who could replace Hutchinson and Ajabo, and they do have some pass rushers who have shown some significant ability over the past several weeks, and Blake Corum looks fast, and the offensive line looks like they can protect, but everything is seen through the prism of whether they can go into the horseshoe in November and shock the world a second time. And I understand this is Penn State is very significant opponent, top 10 and all that, but what do you see? I mean, you mentioned Penn State is vastly improved from last year. Would you say the same thing about Michigan, Joel?
You know what's so interesting is that both of these teams, that's how their fan base views them. You know, it's like it's all well and good, all these other games, but it's like, but can you beat each other? And that's what's so great about the Big Ten East, because I think that that's the same with Penn State. And Rich, candidly, Michigan fans are also sick of me. Why? Because that's the lens with which I analyze them. So if I'm doing their game against Maryland, let's say, a few weeks ago, and people are like, well, why are you so effusive of your praise for Maryland, and you have these small criticisms for Michigan? Well, it's because of the level of expectation I have, and we all have, of each program. Maryland is trying to answer some questions and get to a point where they are bowl eligible, 8 wins, 7, 8 wins. And so when they're making strides in those departments, I see it, and I'm going to say as such. When Michigan has small things that could prevent them from being Ohio State, that's what we're all going to latch on to, because that's the expectation. See, everything is in this sport is derived, and I'm talking about the college sport, is derived through the lens of expectation. And that's vastly different than in the NFL when everybody has the same expectation. You either go to the playoffs or you don't in the NFL. It's a very different set of expectations for every program based on the vast array of programs and potentials of programs that we have in college football. Now, having said that, I do think Penn State is much better. I do think Michigan can be better, which is – it's hard to convince people of that because they lost Hutchinson and Ajabo. However, I thought that their offense last year was very good and very sound, but they didn't have the next gear to go and compete with a Georgia, compete with a playoff team. Now, they were able to beat up Ohio State, and more power to them. But what they've done over the last few years, and I think that you would agree with me on this, they have evolved. I think Jim Harbaugh has evolved. What you saw 5 years ago from Michigan was a very stubborn offense and a specific style of defense, which was going to lead you to 9 or 10 wins. But those schematics and styles were never going to be in the vein that would really threaten Ohio State. Now, they got close one year, and they had really good players, but you just got the sense. I was doing a game, what was that, 2018, Rich, in the shoe, when Michigan rolls in there favored. They've won 10 in a row and got absolutely run out of the building because they didn't have the speed necessary to cover Ohio State. They've changed the schematics. They've changed the style of player. This defense is much more suited to play at the top end of college football because of the athleticism and speed that they put on the field, in particular in the back two levels. They've got good edges, maybe not quite as good as they did last year, but Mike Morris, Yabi Oki, these two guys can rush the quarterback. They're very good. They're big in the middle with Mozzie Smith, over 300 pounds, Mason Graham, a freshman, over 300 pounds. They're athletic and versatile at linebacker with a guy like Junior Colson, who I think in 2 years we're going to be talking about, Rich, at the desk and God knows where, as a first-round draft pick potentially, as a linebacker. And then they got three safeties that are really versatile players and can tackle in space. So defensively, they're much better. And then offensively, they at least have the potential to be both explosive and powerful in the run game.
Lead college football analyst Joe Klatt from Fox Sports here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I said at the top of my program today, Joel, that this is an incredible football weekend. You've got the Eagles and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and you've got the Bills and the Chiefs playing right before that. And then the day before, you've got 5 versus 10 in Michigan and Penn State, and you got 3 versus 6 with Alabama going to Tennessee. How about the Vols and their ability to maybe just say, hey, you were all talking about Georgia and Alabama and Texas A&M and Alabama, and everybody's paying attention to Brian Kelly showing up in LSU. How about us? Do you think Tennessee's got the real stuff here? Joel, what do you think?
I mean, I can't believe, you just don't make a living picking or betting against Nick Saban, right? It's so dumb. And all week I've been sitting here, I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But the bottom line is, I think it's a bad matchup for Alabama, Rich. I can't get it out of my head. Here's the reason why.
Okay.
It's because even if Bryce Young plays, which I think he's going to, I think it's going to be really important for Alabama to be able to run the ball to take some of the pressure off of Young as he's coming back from injury. He can't just be Superman for the entirety of the game. And that's all well and good. And you could say, well, they're dominant in the run game. Look at what they did against Texas A&M a week ago. 51 rushes, 5.5 per carry. Yeah, that's great. Texas A&M is the last-ranked rush defense in the SEC. They're about to face the second-best rush defense in the SEC. So I think it's going to be much more difficult for them to run the ball, which is going to be more in line with what we saw, for the first 3 quarters against Texas. They also, Alabama, they're not great on the road, which is a bit surprising, but this is now kind of a 2-year history of this. Last year in their first road game against Florida, they barely eked that one out. They lost to Texas A&M, went to 4 overtimes against an Auburn team that I didn't think was very good. This year, that close game, a 1-point win against Texas, and really it was Bryce Young and some missed calls that allowed them to win that game. So they're not great on the road. This environment is going to be the toughest of any of those. Neyland is going to be on fire. And the last thing would be, if you're going to beat Alabama, you better create some explosive passing plays and opportunities. And there's only one team in the country that is more explosive throwing the ball down the field than Tennessee. Tennessee has the second most 30-yard completions in the country, only to Ohio State, who we all know is the best offense in the country. So this is a bad matchup for Alabama, and even though they're favored by 7, and I feel like an absolute crazy person, I think Tennessee wins the game.
Joel Klatt, you know what you've just done, Joel? You could say what you've just done is cogent, sound, heartfelt analysis, but what you've just dispensed really is yummy rat poison. That's what you just did. Yummy rat poison is what you just you could term it those 3 words. Yummy rat poison is what Nick Saban might call what you just dispensed.
I hear you, but for him it's like beautiful rat poison because his head is in the other direction. It's the
that's what he calls yummy rat poison. The rat poison he doesn't like is you saying Alabama's going to win this thing by 40, or that sort of that. But you just dispensed the yummy rat poison, man. And you're right. You can't make a living betting against or Nick Saban or saying that Nick's on the wrong end of a good matchup when it's not involving Georgia. But you look at Tennessee and you see them and you're wondering why not. Like, this is one of those why not now games. Why not?
Well, and
why not now?
I personally think, watching Hendon Hooker, I think he's going to be top 3 or 4 pick. When we're in Kansas City.
Okay.
Rich.
All right. Look at you. And before I let you go, let's talk a little bit about drafts and things of that nature and what we've already seen play out, Joel Klatt, since you and I, along with Daniel Jeremiah and the brilliant Charles Davis, who will definitely be having his eyes peeled on what's going on in Tennessee against Alabama.
Oh, there's no doubt.
So what if I told you, I said like a 30 for 30. If I had told you when we were parting ways that Friday night at the draft in Vegas, Bailey Zappe's going to throw the first rookie touchdown pass of the NFL season and be the first rookie winning starting quarterback of the season. How about them apples, right? I mean,
I I certainly wouldn't have guessed that. And
you would not have gone to the tables with me. You would not have gone to the tables with me that night in Vegas.
That's exactly right. That wouldn't have piqued my interest. I don't think that we could have even gotten odds on that one, Rich.
Crazy. It really is crazy. But we did see Breece Hall. Now, we were talking about him that Friday night, and we just saw him with a $197 of total scrimmage yards. What do you think of the rookie class about what we've seen so far through the first 5 weeks of the NFL campaign?
I think that they've been pretty darn good. And you could probably say, and I know that there's a lot of attention being paid to Aiden Hutchinson and maybe his lack of productivity early. But, I thought that, even Thibodeau, he played well last week.
Yes.
He's getting his feet wet. And obviously there was a lot of talk about him leading into last year's draft.
Yes.
Well, where does he fall and this or that? But he seems to have assimilated incredibly well into the culture of the NFL, and in particular there in New York. Walker's done well. But the guys that we all kind of pegged as like, oh yeah, like this is a really good pick, and I bring up Breece Hall specifically. This is exactly what we thought he was going to be, a back that after he got his feet wet was going to very quickly be a back that could carry the load for even an NFL team early in his career, and we're seeing that early. Yeah. I think it's been a pretty good rookie class, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. And then Pickett, again, I don't know, you might have been traveling back from Indiana or something like that, but Pickett, even though in his first start the Steelers got waxed by the Bills, just him getting up, and I don't know if you saw that, he got in Shaq Lawson's face, and the team was shoving everyone else off of him, and the offensive line came to his aid on the spot. I don't know. There's something about this kid that even though he got waxed in his first career start, that there is something there. My 2 cents.
Well,
seeing that.
Here's what I thought when I saw like Pickett versus Trubisky is that I don't think Pittsburgh's great. First of all, right? So like if you go from that starting point, it just looked like with Trubisky you're just kind of dying a slow death, and with Pickett, at least he's swinging while they're going down. Does that make sense? Like, there's some fight there. And, yes, you're going to deal with mistakes, but there's just a little bit more fire there than with the other quarterbacks. And I kind of like it. I kind of love it because this guy is going to battle, and I still think he's pretty dang good. And we'll see what he can do the rest of the year.
And then tonight on Thursday Night Football, Joel, we've got Carson Wentz going for Washington, and Ron Rivera, even though he said it was a mea culpa moment and he backtracked or apologized or said, my bad, and I mean, it created distraction. When asked the difference between the rest of the NFC East and his team, he said quarterback. And he stared down, just like he didn't, with a stare like I didn't stutter. And so I'm wondering, Sam Howell, is he a guy that you think we might see here? You get a sense of anything? What do you think, Joel? What do you think of that?
Wentz, I didn't think Wentz was the problem last week, and I trust a lot of good people in the NFL, and they all told me that, like, hey, Wentz was one of their best attributes last week. And granted, I think that the turnovers and the time that they happen are magnified, and I think that that's absolutely the case. But in a large degree, he was the only reason that they were in that position to begin with. And so I don't think we're getting close to that. I thought that Ron Rivera was way out of line based on what happened in the game. And, you go from there because he was trying to talk about, they've been established and this and that around the other parts of the division. And I'm like, Cooper Rush, I don't know. I kind of felt like I was taking crazy pills. It's like, am I Mugatu here? Like, is this Cooper Rush is not like a foundational piece for Dallas? Am I wrong?
No, you are correct. And Daniel Jones, you're our guy together when you came on this show after the draft, where he was drafted, saying this is going to set the Giants back a few years, and you were right up until Daboll's arrival, right? I mean, look at him.
Daboll has infused an amazing amount of confidence and continuity with that offense, and I think that we would be remiss if we didn't say the other biggest part of what's happened offensively is that you've got a creative offensive mind that's given you a really good game plan. And part of that is that their best offensive player and most dynamic player, Saquon Barkley, is healthy.
He's back.
And when that happens, boy, it becomes easier to play quarterback.
No doubt. Hey, man, enjoy Ann Arbor again, and don't listen to my friends in the Michigan fan base, man. Don't listen to them. You and Gus are great. I love it. And even, honestly, even watching that Indiana game where it was so damn frustrating watching the mistakes, and the Big Ten refs, you were so spot on to call them over their skis with some of those calls, and they were flag happy, which is what Gus called them. But even when it's just looking bleak for my team, Gus dropped the line of someone was cool as a fan, and I just laughed out loud, man. It was just you guys together are a great watch, great listen, and you just keep being you, man. You just go for it.
That.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Well, we'll have some fun this weekend. It'll be a good one. I can't wait.
Well, I hope to be laughing, to be very honest with you, at the very end. So, Joel, fly safe, be well, say hi to Ann Arbor. Oh, by the way, the 97 team's going to be back together to be honored in this game.
Oh, they got all sorts of stuff going on. It's a maze out. It's going to be all yellow. I mean, they're throwing the book at Penn State. You know it's a big one because Michigan doesn't do this a lot,
That's
right?
true.
Like other schools always do these hype and fanfare type of things. Michigan doesn't do that a lot. Why? Because they're Michigan, right? And they're going to get 110,000 regardless. But, man, they're throwing the book. They got the 97 team back. It's a maze out. They're doing a halftime show. So it should be a raucous environment.
Enjoy it, Joel. You take care. Best to Gus and everybody else on the crew. That's Joel Klatt, lead college football analyst, at Joel Klatt on Twitter. I follow him. You should as well, right here on The Rich Eisen Show.